Welcome back to MatchXR Innovation Talks. My name is Johannes Malkamäki and I'm your host for this event. Now we'll have a keynote speaker up here who goes by the name of Linda Ricky Jacobs. She will explore the intersection of artificial intelligence and XR. She's a seasoned executive and strategist specializing in emerging technologies like AR, XR, and the blockchain. With a career spanning global partnerships, transformative tech commercialization, and mentoring startups worldwide. So, let's give it up for Linda Ricky Jacobs. Oh, you're doing it the hard way. There are stairs this side as well. Maybe it's easier that way. That's a good workout to get to the stage.
Not that good. Thank you, everybody. It is so great to be here. I am not Leslie Shannon, who was the original speaker who came down with COVID. So I am talking about AI and the intersection with XR, but not her talk, which was about generative AI. So you can all, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to talk about something that I find particularly fascinating, which is the intersection of AI and XR, but with digital beings. So artificial, and I have notes as well, I apologize for that, but as I said, she got sick yesterday, so I'm doing this a little bit on the fly. So I'm talking about the intersection of AI and XR, but with digital beings. Things I'm going to talk about today are why should we care about them, what are they, artificial intelligence today, where we kind of really are as opposed to the hype. A little history about the intersection of XR and AI, because in fact it goes back to the 1960s, and then where we are today and where we're going to be going, and then just discuss some practical use cases about different industries and how they can use it. And then a few closing thoughts. Why should you be interested in digital beings, right? Other than the obvious things that I'm sure you're all thinking about right now. As an industry, it's been already worth $23 billion in 2023, and that includes mostly customer service, to be honest. It's expected to reach $166 billion, and yes, I apologize that my numbers are in dollars still, but they are. And by 2028, it's supposed to be a 46% compounded annual growth rate until then. So really large market. It taps into something very basic at the human DNA level, I think, to be able to talk to something naturally. So what is a digital being? It is a digital representation of a physical being that uses AI to interact with us. And what does that mean? It could have any aesthetic. It doesn't have to be a human. It could be a bouncing ball that you follow as you're trying to find your way around Helsinki like I was this morning. Or it could be a pet. Or it could be, a hot dog that you choose to have an interactive conversation with. It can be anything you want. Ideally, the goal is to have them offer natural language interaction. So we can talk to them, and they will use both verbal and nonverbal cues to talk with us. And that is a very key part of this. They do exist entirely in the digital domain, and they interact with us through anywhere that we currently interact with digital, but also in the future, other mediums. So media, games, web browser, VR environments, and reality, anywhere that we interact with digital. So the key driving factor behind all of this is that adding AI to the mix with an XR output means that you can create incredibly emotionally engaging conversations and relationships, and in a way that's never been done before. So we already kind of do it if you think about it in a way. We have people who are fans of sports characters and TV characters. I know I'm a Star Trek fan. I've always been a Star Trek fan. There's fandom, and we are already emotionally attached to characters that are out there. So this can bring an extra layer of meaningful conversation and connection that didn't exist before. And when it comes to things like empathy and compassion, all of these things can be wrapped up, especially if you are a brand or a company and you want to you have a relationship with your customers in a new way and have an engaging emotional connection with them. Emotionally connected customers, and this is from the Harvard Business Review, are proven to be 4 times more loyal to brands, and they're likely to spend twice as much. But it's not just about money, and it's not just about brands. It is also about connecting at a human level. So I thought, again, this is a very short talk. I actually have given much longer talks on each one of these, so I'm trying to fit it all in. There's a lot of branches of AI. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, there's actually a whole bunch of them. I've grayed out the ones that I'm not talking about today. I'm kind of just talking about three, really, which is machine learning, which is the second branch of AI, which is they don't have a specific narrow data set that they're drawing from. So it's not like a chatbot that has a defined script, but they can actually think outside of it, self-learn, and customize future experiences and interactions because of that. There's natural language processing, which is just talking, but it's also analyzing your conversation, understanding your interaction preferences, and customizing the way it talks to you from that. And then the third one is image recognition, which is kind of important. Like I said, if you're walking around Helsinki with a bouncing ball showing you where to go, it has to know that it's not walking you into something, or it recognizes that there might be something you'd be interested in. If you like architecture, for example, it can tell you that. So image recognition is super important because it needs to understand the world around you as you interact with it. We don't have a lot of that yet, right? It's still really kind of early days despite all the hype that's going on with generative AI right now and all that. But we do actually. I have a lot of people that say to me, don't interact with AI. And I'm like, you already interact with it 100 times a day and you don't realize that. And for example, detecting email spam, that's AI. Recognizes an image when you do an image search. So image search is AI. Making your cars brake automatically if they detect an object, which, by the way, I think is the most annoying thing ever. I just don't drive my car. I have an 18-year-old car, so it's going to be worth something someday when it has no technology in it. Voice commands, Alexa and Siri, as bad as they currently still are, they will get better. And there's a whole bunch of applications for AI in the healthcare field of identifying, cancer, skin cancer, anomalies. It can actually identify anomalies far earlier, it's been shown, than actual people looking at the scans and all. So let's skip that again. I'm going really fast to talk about the force multiplier that AI will bring when it interacts with XR in a meaningful way. Let's go down. All right, I skipped. Am I going up or down? I'm going the wrong way. I'm sorry. Okay, short history. Now I go backwards. Really quickly, just because I think it's interesting to know, is that in the 1960s at MIT, there was a research scientist who produced something called ELIZA. And ELIZA simulated conversation. It wasn't true AI. But the thing about ELIZA that's really interesting, even though it was scripted and it was very narrow, and the researcher, Joseph Weizenbaum, he was astonished at how quickly people became emotionally attached to conversing with this thing. It wasn't just a computer as well. And I think the interesting insight from that is just as humans, how quickly we anthropomorphize. And I had done this before. I've talked about, the dog from Boston Electronics, where everybody kicks it and everybody's like, oh, the poor dog, and it's a robot. Like, we very quickly attach emotional connections to objects. So I think that is the interesting insight from this, even though it's from the 1960s. On that note, let's talk about where we really are and where we're going with digital beings. Eliza's great-grandchildren have come really far. We have specific purpose virtual humans, and it is weak AI, meaning it's narrow, the data set, it can't really learn yet. Is being used in customer service, as I said before. It's heavily sandboxed in terms of its understanding of the conversation and what it can talk about. But it does exist already, and it's going to get better super fast. In customer service roles, chatbots are being replaced by virtual humans. And you can converse with it through limited text. It's not great yet. I tested one of them. I think Nestle had Ruth the cookie coach. Ruth the cookie coach was supposed to be able to talk to you about making cookies, so I started throwing curveballs at Ruth the cookie coach. I was like, what about sesame seeds? It didn't know how to handle that. So it's still got some ways to go before it's true conversation, but we are going to get there very fast. This is the lowest hanging fruit, though. This is where all the companies are currently running to, because this is the obvious replacement for the, chatbot experience that we've all had and hate and takes forever to answer. We also have an AI intersection with gaming. Currently, we have non-player characters, NPCs, that can be your guide, your hero, your overlord, whatever you want in games, and they have limited functionality, but it will get to the point where they actually are infused with AI and they can interact with us naturally in the game, making it much more interesting to be playing because it's responding to you and then you're responding to it, and there's a loop there, and you're actually getting really involved emotionally with the interaction. With games or with pets. So there's a couple companies that have launched digital pets. Some of them look like dogs, some of them look like dragons, some of them look like whatever you want, and they're essentially live Tamagotchis, so they're augmented reality Tamagotchis. They have personalities. You can train them, and they also have their own personalities. And I did recently play a game with a few other people in VR, where we were in VR chat, and someone had developed this cat herding game, where we had to work together to herd these 10 cats into an enclosure, and it was really hard to do. And the lead programmer was there with me, and he was explaining to me how they had actually infused each of these cats with a different personality. Some of them want to escape, some of them want to be pet, some of them want to sleep, right? But that's early AI, and that is a harbinger of what's to come in terms of that stuff. I'm going to read through this. This is a really bad slide, and I know that. But what's interesting about it, this is an actual thing that a friend of mine whose name is Lorraine Pratt, and she's a really big person in AI, and she gave this to me. And this is an actual sim that she did, mapping with a whole bunch of different variables, a building and an interaction and an experience so that it would optimize the building. It was during COVID, and it was an actual sim that was done using AI. It's not really AI in XR, but I think that it's a short jump to go from that to understanding how it can be used in simulation as well. I just tore through that really quickly, so I'm sure there'll be questions at the end. But what's next? So let's talk about where this is going. Consider the impact of easily accessible XR. So right now, we got to put the headsets on, you got to adjust it. It's not really intuitive. We have some XR glasses that have come out. My gripe with that is I wear glasses, I don't want another pair of glasses, all that stuff, right? But easily accessible, meaning it's in our glasses every day, all day. We walk around the city and we have this additional layer of information that we can interact with. So what's next? We have entertainment. What we now call television and movies is going to become much more immersive and much more experiential and much more a bi-directional type of interaction with the entertainment, not just fed to us. We've had dead actors resurrected, like Audrey Hepburn in this Galaxy chocolate commercial. And the AI that used it is more what I would call CGI than natural interaction. Nevertheless, it's pretty convincing, and as we all played with snap lenses, it's pretty good. And we've had actors de-aged in movies like Robert De Niro. It's not really AI yet, but I think you can see where I'm going with this is, we're going to be able to replace actors with AI digital beings, and not just, it's going to be Tom Cruise at 100 doing his own stunts, right? Because he's going to license his image, he's going to have his avatar, and it's going to be able to talk, speak, and act, and he's not going to have to actually show up for the acting job anymore. So, Tom Cruise at 100 doing his own stunts out of airplanes, it's going to happen. And then if you think about it, the next step is, why do you even need the human to start with, right? You can just have a digital being that can naturally, convincingly portray emotions and act. So that's the entertainment. It's more like theater on the round. You can actually experience it, interact with it. And then that character could be somebody that is in your living room, and you can have them over for coffee. I can have Tom Cruise sitting there in my room building a relationship with that digital being that is then driven by AI for natural language interaction. For entertainment, ABBA. I grew up on ABBA in Holland. We have people who are resurrecting digital versions of their younger selves holographically and performing. Tupac had a virtual concert. I think was it Tupac? I'm really bad at the music stuff. Tupac did an event where he was actually digitally recreated. So it's not AI per se, but with AI being able to generate the music and AI being able to create a conversational avatar, you can create new music in the style of this dead person's, and his grandchildren are going to be thanking us forever for that one. And then you can have them over for drinks in your room afterwards and say, hey, and then you are interacting with this character, even though they're dead, but they just put out a new album. We live in a really interesting times. For sports, again, not a sports person, David Beckham, though. I do know that name. Not only will you be able to necessarily be in virtual reality with David Beckham, but you can actually play sports with him, and you can play football, and the AI will be able to not only take the moves he's made, but see what you're doing, match his moves to your, and come up with new ones, so new David Beckham moves, and you can play with him. And again, you can sit with him in your living room if you so desire, or take him with you when we walk around the city to be your guide and say, hey, there's the, the metro stop or something like that. I had 3 people this morning helping me with that. It was very kind. We have marketing and advertising. So virtual influencers, this is a whole talk of its own. It's a fascinating area. The stats, and I'm talking like the last 2 days, another one was launched. These, I get slightly cynical about it. It's not real. Only the younger you get, the less you care about the reality of your virtual influencer, to the point where it flips with Gen Z. They actually prefer it to be a digital influencer. So these people are brand ambassadors. They are not real, but they look real, they act real. And you could, I think with the numbers I have is that Ludamaglu launched in 2009. So it was just a digital person, a 2D, has since become 3D, will become one that you can interact with in the future. Has earned a staggering $552 million since launch for her, the people who designed her. She's had partnerships with brands. It's insane. It's like it's a real person, but it's not. And the advantage there for brands and companies is that they'll never get caught doing something you don't want them to do as a brand. They'll never, stumble drunk out of a taxi in the middle of the night and the paparazzi will catch it and that's the end of your brand relationship. Like, these are completely controllable. Which is incredibly powerful for a brand, but also for a fan. Again, you have that relationship with that brand. And what does, for example, a Timberland brand, what does that feel like and to you as a fan? And what is the manifestation of that? And how do I interact with it in the real world? And that is what we're talking about here. Yesterday, I think it was, Puma just launched a new virtual influencer called Layla. She's from Morocco. They have a whole backstory on her. And actually, it's an incredible tool. So when you can actually talk and interact with these things naturally, and it understands your history, your relationship to the brand, previous conversations you've had with them. And by the way, I'm on the privacy and panel talk after this, so you may want to come to that too, because it kind of matches this. But it's an incredibly powerful tool. And I just think it's really interesting. And then companionship. We have a lot of lonely people in the world. I did a TED Talk a couple years ago about the end of loneliness in virtual reality and community. And I truly believe that this is one of those ways that we can help people who are lonely. And it's not just for senior citizens. I know that's the stereotype, and despite the picture I have, it's 30% of adults suffer from severe loneliness. And that rises to almost 50% over 65. And I personally think that's a real travesty, right? We've lost community, but all of a sudden we have all these lonely people. It takes a physical toll, blood pressure, Alzheimer's, anxiety, depression, all those things, cognitive decline. So I think having a virtual being, human, dinosaur, whatever you want, but something that's in your space that you can talk to is actually a really human and uplifting experience, possibly, right? There's a story I like. It's about a woman who has Parkinson's, so she can't walk anymore. But she meets her son in. I'm sorry about the speaker. She meets her. Can you hear me? It's all good. She meets her son in virtual reality every week. They both wear. He wears a tuxedo. She puts on a virtual evening gown, and they dance together. And I just it's just so sweet, right? Like, she's not alone anymore. She can meet with people. And it's just a wonderful way to brighten people's lives. And then other kinds of companionship, because let's just be honest, it exists. I can't even start to talk about this. There are this was the nicest picture I could find, by the way. I got yelled at by my boyfriend for putting this in the presentation. I was like, it's the best I could find. I think I've seen, I'm in a lot of augmented AI groups where people are generating all sorts of pictures. And this is a very powerful connection that people have to the Rorschach test fantasy in their head. And there's this company is called justifiably BroLab, that's their name. And BroLab's app has been downloaded at least 500,000 times in the last year or two. And their interaction is still, I'm sorry, this is falling. Put this back on. I'm sorry, I'll do this quickly. But I mean, this is just one of them. There's so many. But I think the opportunity to do, that kind of relationship, and again, it is about loneliness. It's about being able to talk to someone. So infuse this with AI, and you've got a super powerful connection. And it can look like whatever you want. That's all I have to say about that one. All right. So that's it, really. I go back just for a second. I had some thoughts, closing thoughts. We're on the cusp of something super interesting and super revolutionary at a human scale. It's essentially, imagine you can have a relationship with anybody and any personality and anybody you want. Create it yourself, create it from the entertainment world. I can sit with Captain Picard and have some tea, right? This is an incredibly powerful technology combination. And essentially, I understand that what I'm talking about a little bit is, the holodeck from Star Trek, but we are moving there. So we are increasingly already digital. I mean, everybody's looking at their phone, everybody's on their computers. Like, it's become our reality, and this is the next frontier of that. And I feel very strongly that this is a way for us as people not to necessarily separate, but we can engage with another dimension as well as each other. So I know that it's easy to say, oh, it's not human, but it is. And that's what's so beautiful about it. So stick around for the privacy panel when we talk about the downside of potentially some of this stuff. But thank you for your time. That was very